Bob Brown, welcome to ABC News 24.
Thank you.
Why is it good to give small business a tax cut, but bad to give bigger businesses a tax cut?
Really, we would prefer to see other assistance given to small business, because the tax cut will only go to 30% of them, and they need help because, not least due to the mining boom and a high dollar, things are tough.
But there are many medium and big businesses that are finding things tough too, who aren't benefiting from the mining boom and are in industries where the high dollar is having an impact.
Well, let's look at those, because one of the things we would take from the Henry report is and look at is increasing the definition of small business from a $2 million turnover to a $5 million turnover, which will bring a lot more of those middle order businesses into getting the tax break.
Have you put that to government?
We will be. We first of all needed to see the government legislation, and the Greens have been able to get that for the public to look at. It'll be released today in return for us putting through the mining tax, the government's much diminished mining tax. We hope to amend it, but one way or another that will go through next week. That said, the tax take in the country has fallen way below the 23.7% of GDP, which was there in 2007 when Labor came to office. It's now at 22.3%. That's $22 billion that's not being gathered in tax from the wealth of this country.
But isn't that a function too of the slowdown in the economy, of the global financial crisis, and the fact that the money the government's getting, particularly from company tax, has slumped?
Well, it's a sheer function of the fact that the gross domestic product's going up, but the tax take's gone down. And so there's room in there. And the last thing you would want to do is to give a tax break to the wealthiest component of the economy. That is the big mining corporations. And this government legislation would give $500 million per annum back to Rio and BHP, a lot of which, the majority of their shareholdings are outside the country, so the money flies out of the country. And the four big banks, who are doing very well, thank you, look at the profits they're turning up, would get back nearly $300 million. We think it'd be much better to put that into education, health, the disability insurance scheme, to make sure that the rest of Australia is getting a fair go.
Isn't there the prospect, though, that many medium to big businesses would use the money saved through a lower company tax to grow their businesses, to employ more people, and the government would eventually get money back through higher company tax payments, because the companies would be growing, and through lower unemployment benefits?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we are saying yes to the tax break for smaller businesses, which, by the way, Tony Abbott is going to vote no on. No assistance there at all. Wait till after the election, he says.
But if there's that benefit for small businesses, isn't that benefit there for medium to big businesses as well?
Well, I again repeat, the big winners out of the corporate tax break, as things stand, are mega corporations, many of them with their substantial shareholdings overseas, so the tax break will simply flow out of the country. We want to make sure this is a better outcome for the Australian people. And, you know, I've not heard how Labor, let alone the opposition, is going to fund the $5 billion recommended by Gonski into public education and to poorer private schools in this country, let alone how they're going to fund the National Disability Insurance Scheme, let alone how they're going to develop Denticare, which the Greens have been pursuing so strongly. So the Greens here think that those options should be in front of the queue of giving Rio, BHP and the big banks a tax break.
But there are many other, as I said before, there are many other medium to larger businesses who are in areas where the economy is not doing so well, say in retail or in tourism, who could benefit from this and pass benefits on through growing their business and are employing more people.
Well, you know what the Greens stand for there? We again support the Henry tax review. We're the Conservatives here. We support what Treasury recommended. That's the original super profits tax. If Labor had taken that on and hadn't wilted to the pressure from BHP, Rio and Xstrata, there would be an extra $100 billion coming into the Treasury over the next 10 years, so that we could help medium and small businesses much more, who are affected, no doubt, by the mining boom in this country.
Are you prepared to budget all on knocking back the company tax cut for medium to big businesses?
Well, we'll see the legislation today. The opposition wants to block the tax cut right across the board. The Greens are being much more reasonable and sensible. We want to see that small and as I've indicated, some medium-range businesses get that advantage. Let me just say here that only 30% of small businesses will get that tax cut anyway, because most of them are not corporatised. So we are waiting to see what the working group's going to recommend in the coming months before the budget. We would like to see, for example, the instant tax write-off, as recommended by Henry, go from $6,500 to $10,000 for these small businesses. And we've got some other recommendations there to help small business. We'll be able to do that if the Greens are successful here. Neither of the big parties has got a funding mechanism for that in the way that we Greens have.
But you're not prepared to budge on allowing lower company tax for big businesses?
Well, no, not these big corporations. In the middle, when we see that legislation, we are always looking at the options. But when it comes to the big mining corporations who are making megabucks out of Australia's mineral resources and exporting the majority of it overseas, we think it's reasonable to bring some more of that back into the country. And one of the things that we can do here is help the manufacturing and small business base, which is being very seriously impacted upon by that wealth flowing out overseas.
Bob Brown, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, thank you.